the best because most time I'll be somewhere else working and I'll get an email. Like if I get an email now, I'm not responding. This is more important at this point. So what you have here is what we call CLAMS. Not complicated. It's not rocket science. CLAMS stands for Comprehensive Lab Animal Monitoring System. It's not rocket science. So this is an environmental controller. All it does is control two things: light, temperature. That's all it does. It's the same as your fridge at home. Besides, this allows you to also heat. Your fridge just cools. What you see here is the manual temperature control unit. You can either control the environmental controller using the software. You can also use this little screen here, which I rather use the software because it allows you to set schedule like months ahead of time. Let's say, you want to set a schedule where you want it to be at 4 degrees today, 5 tomorrow, 6 the day after. You don't have to come back every day and push this dial.
What's the temperature range that it?
The range is between 4 to 50 degrees C. But I recommend not ever using 50 degrees C.
Yeah. No, I used to use sweating.
Yes, you'll fry your animal. it's that simple. The most important dials are these two dials in here. They are called temperature fail-safe. There's a high and a low. It will only operate within the range you have the low and the high set. So you can set your low. Usually we recommend 2, but I would say 2 is too high. 5, 4. 4 is the lowest you can reach most of the time, unless the room is already really cold. This room you will never reach 2. It will be pretty much impossible. This is just a compressor like the one you have in your car, your AC. It won't go that low. So right now I have it set at 5 for the low and 30 for the high. You can go a little higher than 30. If your study says so, but don't go over 40. It will be very uncomfortable for the animals. You have 16 cages, so this is a 16-channel system. They are all the same. The wheels might look different, just different colors, but they will all operate the same. The color does not matter. So we will first start by talking about the most important component of this system here. The cage. So I wish I had a small table to sit on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this guy a little bit out here. That way we can have a good look at the cage and how to deal with it. Usually food goes in there. It's parrot food, not here. We love these guys. We love the way they operate, but there is one drawback. The animal takes out the food and play with it in the cage. Hey, it doesn't have a spill ball. Like our older system weren't that accurate, but they have something called a spill ball when the animal pulls the food out. It falls on the spill ball, and it won't record until it eats it out of the spill. So this is accurate, yes, but again, how smart could they be to remove the ferret completely? If he removes it, in our opinion, he ate it. So it might be in the cage, but it's like it's eaten food. So, they are great. They call load cells. They're some tiny small scales, very expensive, very accurate, measured to the 0.01 gram resolution. So, like one bite, it can record. It's not like these type of scale there that have like a higher resolution. So this is the actual scale. One thing to pay attention is that it's very sensitive. It falls, it breaks. Over $1,000 gone. So to mount the feeder onto the scale, pretty easy process. What you see here is a latch. This piece just latches on to the feeder. So in the beginning it will be a little hard because these are brand new, but as time goes it will prime, it will be a lot easier to just mount to just push it onto the latch. It is a little harder with gloves. Your nails will work better. So anyone want to try? Like for you guys to kind of try and kind of, it's a technique that once you get used to it, I mean, it becomes second nature. The water works the same, a latch also. Again, it's a latching mechanism, but a few more pieces than the food. So, water, fill it up, shut it. Again, the important part is the latching mechanism. Water. And I would like for someone else to try. Be careful with the scale. This never falls. So you see this? You just want to push up, clip, yeah, clip and pull. Yeah. So let me show you a better way. So if you hold on to this, it will. If you hold on to this guy, it will give you a better hold of. And the smaller your fingers are, the better. Right? I kind of have big fingers, so it's kind of hard. Oh yes, you can try. You can pass it on. I would like for the other ones also to kind of handle it and have.
Same, right?
Yes, same. It's same technique. It's just a latch. The third brack you have here, this is an air brack. There's a fan. It's necessary for air mixture because we're pushing air into the cage which has O2 and CO2. The animal is also producing CO2. If we just sample right where we're pushing air, we will almost only get room air. But if we have a fan to properly mix the air coming in and the CO2 produced by the animal, give us a more accurate reading. So fans always need to be on to have better accuracy. This is the fresh air import and sample import. So what you guys have is called a negative flow system. The way negative flow, usually when you see a cage, you have two air lines, one going in and one coming out because you're blowing air in and you're sucking air out. So makes sense. This is very different. This is called a negative flow. So what we do, we just suck in from the cage. Where is the air coming in from the cage? Because this is not completely sealed. Mm-hmm. So when you have vacuum, what it will do is it will suck air from
inside the chamber.
Inside the chamber. So as we suck air from inside the chamber, and the animal is producing with a good mixture, you know the difference between inside the chamber and inside the cage. So when you hear a reference, it's nothing else. This is not rocket science. We read the room, we read the cage. The difference, that's what the animal produces. It's pretty basic. It's not complicated. This is just blank. Usually we have a blank block because you guys didn't buy all the feature that we could have produced. For example, if you wanted to add body mass, where there's a cubby and the animal, we have some very nice cubbies that the animal really like to go in there and just like sit, and while it's in there, we're measuring its weight. So like within an experiment, we could tell you, okay, when did the animal gain 1 gram, when did it lose
That would have been a really good feature to have.
Yes, I mean there's other features like respiration, like the amount of breath. You know, there's also body temperature, heart rate. So there's so many different features that can be added onto this here. Second feeder, second water for people that like to do food preference, drink preference. I've seen some people buy the same thing with 4 drinks where, okay, we want to have wine in one, chocolate milk in one, water in one. Yes, French people do that a lot. So
Interesting.
to study drink preference. The last little piece is a wheel, the running wheel. The running wheel is magnetically coupled. You just sit it on and it just holds itself. The way it works is that on the wheel itself, there's a magnet. On this guy, there's a sensor. Anytime the magnet goes by the sensor, it's a full turn, one revolution. At the end of your experiment, if you know the diameter and you know the amount of turn, guess what? You also know how much the mice ran. Simple. So you can choose to use it, you can choose not to use it. Initially, when this system here was brought, we thought you guys would always use it with wheels, but he just told me that they might not use it with wheels. The only thing that will be different is that right before leaving today, I'm going to write you guys a different initialization file that will say without wheel. So whenever you don't use the wheel, I want you to use that initialization file. You know why? Because it will give you more activity data point. Why more activity data point? That's also simple to explain. As you can see, look at the cage. And since there's nothing here, we'll go take a look at this. You guys see these black pieces of activity sensors there with some tiny little hole? These are activity sensors.
So it shows that they've been moving around inside the cage.
Okay, so with this system, you can monitor the actual positioning of the mice throughout the whole experiment. And at the end, if you even want, the software will draw it for you. Like draw it, show you like for the two days where the mice was inside the cage, where the mice prefer to be inside the cage. Like it draws it. So, but if you really look, this wheel is blocking some of the activity beams on the z-axis. The z-axis is the top, it's for wearing only. The x-axis is the one right under the z. The y-axis is this guy. So when we can know where the animal is on the x-axis, on the y-axis, that gives us a way of knowing where he is at all times. But as you can see, the wheel is blocking some of the beams. So what happens? Wouldn't these activity sensors just think there's just a big mice standing there? What we do is we do a process called masking. So whatever beam is being blocked by a wheel, by a feeder, we just mask it. Mm-hmm. So you have less activity data. So if you remove the wheel and you use the regular initialization file, guess what? Any beam that's being blocked by the wheel will still be blocked. The mice can be walking around, but you still lose those data points. But what I'm going to do is write you guys a second file, 5 minutes, and like unclick those data points and say there's no wheel. So whatever the wheel was blocking and I have masked, I'm going to unmask it. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be important to choose your initialization file. Any question about this so far?
You gave axes. I was writing something.
Okay. X, bottom long.
Okay.
Z, rearing, top. A lot of people don't buy z-axis because rearing is not that important. I mean, because this is the thing. Like on the z-axis, you only get data point in terms of when the animal is standing. It's not really activity. Activity is more ambulant when the animal is moving. Now, if he can defy gravity and find him a way to just stay up in the air and walk, then Z will be great. So Z, you only get just the standing, which is not real active, it's just wearing. Mm-hmm. He's standing, he's putting his paw on he's not walking on the z-axis. The y-axis and x is what gives you position. Since you have an emitter, detector. So we detect this way and we detect this way.
So X and Y.
Yeah, no, y.
Y.
Y, x. It's
Yeah.
just on the way it is on a regular rectangular plane. The longer one is x, the shorter one is y. Any question about this cage? Washing. Most things in here can go into a washing machine. This guy is metal, washing machine. Water bottle, anything with the water bottle can go in a washing machine. These guys don't get washed. Very expensive electronics. What you can do is use like between 5 to 10% alcohol water or bleach water if you have some particle, or you can use some high pressure air to just kind of blow it out. That's the best way to completely de-infect these guys. Whatever else the mice touch can be washed, but not this wheel. You guys are the first one that actually bought this wheel. You guys actually made us get this. You guys wanted this specific wheel. We almost never sold you guys this because we have to find a way to incorporate what we do with our wheel with this specific. It's called. There's a special name for these wheels, but they are not very strong plastic. So to wash them, do not put them in the washing machine. They should melt. And they will melt.
So who's gonna wash?
Hand wash, yeah, hand wash will do great. No washing machine. But it can get soaked with water because there's no electronic. Actually, it's just a magnet here and a magnet inside. Magnets actually, washing it, that's why we cover it with some type of goop. That way it won't rust when it gets washed. So it can get washed. The cage is the regular home cages that most people have in their facilities. The way you wash your other cages is the same way you wash the cage. The fan, don't wash it. High pressure air usually works. Here what you have, this is a shroud. This prevents the animal from putting its tiny little paw in there and get chopped by the fan. So what I'm going to do is I'm not only going to actually make a file. When I get back next week, I'm going to also send you guys 16 shrouds that don't have this piece here. So, so when you don't want to use the wheel, please also remove the shroud because as you can see, the shroud is going to block a few beams. Yeah. So when Monday I will ship you out 16. Gonna send you 16 shrouds. So whenever you don't want to use the wheel, it's the same. It's gonna be the same. It just don't have this piece. So you just sit that shroud and you just sit your fan. That works.
So when it comes to temperature inside the chamber, the entire thing is one uniform temperature.
One uniform temperature, because we have no way of really. Imagine if we have to have 16 compressors on each. They don't have that yet. Yeah. I mean, we do in some ways. We have some type of freezing system that each cage will have its own little Peltier device. But most people don't want to actually really control one cage. They want to control a complete environment.
How about the light? Can you change light between each
no, the lights also is the same thing. You're gonna have the same. Either they are on or off. Now you can choose your color, what you call on and what you call off. In a lot of places, they either have white light for daytime and red light for nighttime. Why red light? Because some scientists like to come at night and be able to actually watch without disrupting the mice. And they say the mice don't see with red light. So if you have red light as your off, you can you can come and see the animal without disrupting its
about running the cages themselves? Like, if we wanted to like run 8 on one particular experiment, could you run the other? Or
You
they
can
run
run
the other?
one, you can run 16. You can run however many you want to
But
run.
you can run slightly different protocols.
Yes,
Running wheels and no running wheels. Or?
no. When it comes to protocol, it will be, yeah, it will be all the same. I mean, I think I can do something yeah, I can do something to write, but I will also have to write you a file that tells you, okay, 8 could be done without. But if you are really interested in that, next week when I get to my office and I have nothing going on, I just get on my computer and make you one and send it to you.
Okay, so then the whole unit, same computer.
Same?
The whole unit of same computer, right?
Yes, same temperature.
Same safety.
Yes. Like if you do thermo neutrality, it will be for all of it. If you do very hot, it will be for all of it.
Just to clarify, so temperature you can't change between them. Lights you can't, but can you have different colors in different ones, or is it all one color at all times?
No, it's all one color. Actually, there's only 2 steps, either on or off.
Okay.
When it comes to color, you choose what color is your on and what color is your off. It could only be on or off. It's 2 states.
Gotcha.
Now, for example, right now it's at an on stage. So, if I wanted to change my on color,
Okay.
so by the way, your computer, I can log into your computer to set it
So
up.
can we set up like the light, this color
Yeah.
and daytime and then at night?
Yes, yeah. I mean, for example, if I wanted to, we can also do something else. We can match what you guys have in this building. So, right now what I just did was I just changed the on color to be a different color. So right now also it is set to work the same way the light works in your building. You have an actual protocol going on. From what I see, it's from 7 to 7.
Yeah.
Right now, on is yellow. It's from 7 to 7, the same way it is in your building, but the only thing that you can change is color and timing. Also, it's let's say one of you guys decide you want to change the day and the night for the animal. You can change it to let's say their day start at 8 p.m. At 8, the light turn on, white light, bright, so they think this is daytime, they do the stuff at 8 in the morning, you can turn it off completely, dark. That's why we have these panels here, which allows you to make them think it's nighttime when it's daytime. So these panels comes off, that's why I removed one. So if you happen to have any type of study that require you to be here in the daytime and have the animal think that it's nighttime, have that environment going, that's what these are for. You can have any color or you can have it completely off also.
for the colors, is it preset options, or can you choose a spectrum?
I mean, there is so much you can do. It's 128 different colors. You can actually
Okay.
mix. You can change the intensity. You can. I mean, it's the same stuff they would do at a nightclub. You can even have like a demo where they just flash different colors. I mean, it's just regular LED light. Whatever, however they can control a light in a nightclub, you can also do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So now that we are talking about the cage, you guys understand everything about the cage? Food, water, blank, nothing, and this is running wheel and air.
Just where the connections go from the cage to the actual wall.
Oh, from the cage to the, okay, all
It
of
has
these,
the same labels.
yeah, all of these are labeled. I mean, it's pretty simple. Load cell 1, if you really see, you will see load cell, you will see 1. Okay, what happens if you put load cell 2, which is the water, into load cell 1? You're not going to blow anything. The only thing that's going to happen is that your food data will become water data, and your water data will become food data.
Gotcha.
It's that simple. It's not that bad. I mean, if you understand at the end, well, I made a mistake. When you go to actually, yes, look at your data, you just switch it because it's the same exact scales actually. The only difference is that one is programmed, addressed to work at port 1, the second one is addressed to work at port 2.
Gotcha.
So it's not a big deal, but pay attention to the labels. This guy here says wheel. If you're not using the wheel, you really don't have to actually have him plugged in because all it's doing is that anytime there's a turn, it just sends a 1. Click 1. Another turn 1. So if there's no turn, there's no need to send that 1. I mean, you won't send the 1, you won't need the cable. So now let's talk about the process. How does it do it? In here, these are just the actual functions. More could have been added. VDM stands for volumetric drinking monitor. You guys are not measuring water by volume. You guys are measuring water by weight. So another one is called licks. Is by measuring the amount of time the animal go and just lick on the bottle. Again, you guys measure water by, which is the best way of measuring water, by weight, the actual gram. Like the water weight 10 grams, by the time the experiment is gone, the water weighs 9 grams. How much is 9 grams in terms of liter? And you know exactly the quantity. It's just a matter of just converting.
Okay.
Now, what you see here, these are the actual sensors. This is an oxygen sensor, very fast, 725 degrees C. You don't want to open it and put your hand in there, it gets really hot. This is a gas conditioner. Why gas conditioner? It's because when we sample from the cage, we get a sample that is not ready to be read. We have to get it ready. We have to condition it. 2 things we do with it is that we remove the ammonia from the sample. Some mice pee a lot. Some mice don't pee that much. You have OB mice that will pee a lot. You have diabetic mice that will pee a lot. Ammonia is very bad for electronics. Ammonia destroys electronics real fast. So we suck some air from cage 1. What happens is the air goes to this little filtering system. These 2 blue ones are ammonia. Why 2? A blanket. Because a lot of time people have 1 and the 1 gets used up and they forget what color is supposed to be. As this is removing ammonia, this is going to change color. It's color indicating. It's going to turn green. So once this one is all the way green, what I want you to do is I want you to grab a new one. But I don't just want you to take a new one and just put it there. So I should have a small screwdriver here. This will. So, what will happen is I would like you to remove the old one. Very easy. It doesn't matter how you put it on. So there's no airflow, no direction. What I want you to do is I don't want you to just take a new one and replace this. You know why? Because this guy, even though like ammonia is removed from top to bottom, some ammonia might escape this and is being trapped to this. This is your safety blanket. I want you to take the new one and bring it as your safety blanket and get the one that probably had a little bit of ammonia in it, move it in the front. You always want your safety blanket to be the newest one possible. Here, don't worry too much. It will take you 10 years, maybe never. This is just a particle filter. As you can see inside the ammonia filter, there's some tiny little, it's like some tiny little rocks. And a few of them might escape over time. And we don't want these particles inside the sensor. So this just removes particle. Yeah, this one does have a flow indicating arrow. So if something happened, you just come in one day and it's broken, we also sent you some extras. You just switch it, change it. So we suck some air, we remove the ammonia. Next process is to remove the air from the water from the air. This is one thing. Can we just measure the oxygen and CO2 concentration with wet air? Yes, we can. But the actual math is a lot more complicated. You have to go through some Haldane transformation. Software-wise, it's easier if you just draw it and hand it to me. It's like going from this big equation to a small equation. So what we do is we draw the sample. Is the sample itself being dried? Yes, it's being dried, but does the sample go through the dry right? No. Actually, what we have is we have a system to do that. We have, it's like two tubes, an inner tube and an outer tube. Your sample is never corrupted. Your sample never go through this. Your sample go through an inner tube, and there's some air that goes through the outer tube, and the air actually removes the water from your sample without corrupting your sample. Once it's dry, then we send it to the O2 sensor. This guy also has the CO2 sensor. So it doesn't only get the sample ready, it also has the CO2 sensor incorporated. UGC, UGS. These two guys, they don't do nothing. As you can see, we have two of them. Each of them control 8 channels. These green tubes comes from this guy. So it's just a pump, 2 pumps. One that sucks from the cages, 8 at the time, and one that decides which channel is being selected in terms of sending the sample to this small. So it's called a multiplexer. You have 8 and 1. You have 8 input, 1 output, and he just selects cage 1, he clicks on cage 1, cage 2, he clicks on cage 2. So at all times there's a pump sucking 8 from all 8 cages, and there's another small pump that's just switching depending on what cage is being sampled. So on a 4-channel, let's say we have a 4-channel experiment. What will happen is that little output multiplexer will only go to 4 channels. 1, 2, 3, 4, come back. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's not looking at all 8 cages. But all 8 are constantly sucking from the giant pump. Now it just decides what cages am I looking at and sending the sample. Not rocket science. Very, very easy. Now one last thing here is we have another small piece. It's called a condenser. There's one on each side. Why a condenser? It does the same as what this do, right? It's because the condenser removes most of the water. Just to tell you, removing water from the air is very, very important to us. So the condenser removes the water inside the cage, most of it, and we still can't get it to completely dry. Now, this guy, he's very expensive, so he's the one that removes the last little bit of water. As you can see, I started it yesterday. He's also, he is color indicated. It's turning purple. So what is happening is you got air going in here. It's hooked in series with this guy, and this is the output. Another particle filter. So we don't want these particles, the air coming out of it, to go inside the electronic. So him too, he works the same as. So what I'm going to do is I am going to hook this guy right here for now. We have the same thing as we had before. This is the same thing. Besides, we only have one can. I wanted to remove one can, so when this guy turned all the way purple, I want you to change your dry wipe. Very easy. It's spring loaded. If it's too hard, there's a tool here to help you with it. And we sent to you guys a full jug of it. Now, this is expensive. There is ways to get around this being expensive. It's dry wipe. When it's all the way pink, you don't necessarily have to throw it away. You can regenerate it. You bake it. But when you bake it, you just lose the color indicator. That's why you keep that guy. You always put a little bit of glue at the bottom or mix it. You probably have done it before. Have all of you guys use dry wipe? So I can move on then. No one asked about the white one. You guys are not interested in knowing what it is? I mean, I can jump, I can go. It's sort of like, you never have to worry about it. It can last up to 10 years. All this does is just remove CO2, for calibration. We just need to have a 0 point and a known point in order to have an accurate calibration process. So on the CO2 sensor, calibration is done by sucking air through this port, no CO2 whatsoever, and it gives you a voltage. Then you suck air from the known concentration of CO2. If you have a voltage for 0 and you have a voltage for a known point, guess what? You know, at each point, like each concentration in between, because we believe 0.5% is the highest you will ever get inside the cage, and 0 you get it from this. So anything in between, like voltage-wise, you know exactly what is the concentration. So you never have to worry about him because he actually. What's funny is that I've seen these go bad, but it's not the actual rocks in there. It's the plastic itself that ends up cracking up because because of the actual composition, the chemical composition. So in about 6, 7, 8 years, you will see it cracking instead of the soda lime going bad. So it does not expire. Does it change color? Yeah, it turns brown. But this one can last you guys until all of you have your own lab somewhere else. So, is there anything else we haven't talked about? Yes, the condenser. Do you guys want to see how the condenser works? So I'm going to push this a little bit because it doesn't do nothing else. Air comes through here. It cools it enough so that the water is removed from the air. Water dropped inside the bottle. Oh, you guys can see. If you got, yeah, a drop of water. So it removes water from the air and then send it to the UGC, the gas conditioner. It removes most of the water. I would say about 90% of the water is removed by this guy. The other 10% is taken care of by the dry ride. I mean, I wish it could do the 100% so we wouldn't need the dry ride, but not possible at this point. So, water bottles. This is water drops. I don't expect these to ever to get full anytime soon. If we were in Louisiana, which is pretty much a lot more humid, yes, I expect these to probably get filled within 6 months. But with you guys, maybe a year or two. When it's full, you just unscrew it, pour the water, screw it back in. When you screw it back in, make sure it's tight, because remember, this here is sucking air from the cage.
So it could be something straight
From the room. Yeah, you want to suck air from the cage. These pieces here are called restrictor. We have this pump that is sucking air, and we are telling it suck 0.6. But again, it's a pump. We believe it's somewhere around a little more than 0.6. And this guy is the one that regulates it to 0.6. To get it pretty close to 0.6. Any questions? And again, this is a particle filter. So this is coming from the cage. It goes through this guy, remove the water, separate water and air. Air goes back up, get regulated, and go to the flow control. So it's called a condenser. One last thing here before we get to the software part. In the back, there's something called an evap pen. It gets really hot. What does the evap pen do? There's a compressor on top, produces water. We don't want to run a tube, bring it out of the building to get rid of the water. So we have a pen that gets really hot, that evaporates the water. So if you walk behind here, be careful. If you push the cooler, don't push it all the way to the wall, because you'll be heating up the wall. He wonder why it's hot, is because you have a compressor and a evap fan. So this room will always get a little hotter than other rooms. Questions? We good? This line here, this is a calibration gas line. When you want to calibrate, you just plug in. When you're done calibrating, you just unplug. Usually I want this guy set around 10 psi, write it down, 10 psi, it's important. If you go less than 10 psi, calibration might fail. If you go a lot higher than 10 psi, calibration might fail. 7 psi will work, 13 psi will work, 5 psi won't, 25 psi you are pressurizing the gas condition. 10 psi around about 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Give or take. Yeah. So again, he's pretty easy to push. So let me put this around 10. In fact, I'm telling you guys to unplug it. You don't necessarily have to unplug it. If you forget, that's okay. But there's a lot of systems where you have to, because it will use all of our older system, you have to. On this here, this is pretty new. We found a way to just open the valve, suck some air from this, and close the valve. But it's just good. It's just good not to leave anything plugged in on the gas, especially if you work with all the system around. It's always just good to. I just like unplugging it. It's expensive. It's hard to get. It takes months to get this specific mixture. Like let's say if it's unplugged up there and this guy is plugged, you will run the 2,000 pounds real easy. In a day and a half, 2 days, you won't have no gas left. So unplug it. Ready? Push back out. Oh, important. Calibration gas. Right now, you have you won't need this here since I've already entered these numbers on the system, on the calibration window, so it saves it. If you happen to get some new gas, don't use the same number. Because this is what happens with these guys. Most people just look at the tag here and just go by this number. The number here is what you ask. The actual concentration is almost always different from what you requested. Here you requested 0.5 and 0.5. You ended up with 20.5 and 0.4997. In this case, not too bad because my system would just round it out to 0.5. But if this was 0.4997, for example, not 997, and you have 0.5, calibration is always bad. I mean, it will pass calibration, but actually you will never have accurate data because it will think, okay, what you believe is 0.5 is in reality 4.97. So, as I told you, you have a 0 point, you have a known point, and we have a step size. Your step size won't be the same. So, you actually don't have accurate. You can do studies for years and think that what you're doing is working when it's not. I've seen it. So, very important, won't matter right now because what happens is anytime you have a new gas tank, you just need to change this just one time and calibrate. The software will record, it will remember, that will be set as a default. So right now you don't have to worry, your default is already set since I calibrated already and we will calibrate again. We won't have to change it. But if you get a new gas tank, don't use those default numbers. You get this paper and you go to the actual concentration.
That means we will have the new instruction.
Yes. Every gas tank. Just don't look at the stickers on it. You just go with the actual certification page. So every gas tank should come with its own certification page.
How often do you calibrate?
Oh, it depends. Let's say if you run an experiment today and you come back tomorrow to run an experiment, it's okay. But if you come back next week, this is what calibration means. Gas is expensive, it's hard to get. But guess what? Calibration proves accuracy. Right. I mean, with me, if I was, I'm not a scientist, I'm an engineer, but if I was a scientist, maybe anytime I'm going to, because I'm that complicated, I want things to be, I like it to be 100% okay. So, but yes, if you have gaps, 2, 3, 4 days gaps calibrate. Same day, you don't need to. Those things don't change. Oh, usually most people understand that works in lab understand not to take the certificate. Well, this year,
When it's changed, the paper will.
yes, this year usually it's taped in the inside. Now, if you take it off, it's because you really have a need, and those are variables that you can't control that. I'm going to tell you guys a story. I was going to the University of Chicago. They needed a specific gas, which it was a 20% CO2, less nitrogen, to do a specific test. So the lady, she takes those numbers from me, she put in an order. So it has to go through channels. Somewhere right there, some people decided, who uses 20% CO2? This must be a mistake and crossed the sea and got 20% O2. So I traveled all the way to Chicago to do this test and I need 20% CO2. And I stop the test and I'm looking at these numbers, something is wrong here. And I come and look at the gas and it says 20% O2.
Oh.
It's because someone else thought they knew better. So those you don't control those. Someone else, oh no, she must have made a mistake, she not O2.
So, I don't know, like how to recognize fast ones and long to not.
Yes, but again, no. Again,
So are you asking how to know if the tank has been changed to know to check the numbers?
no, there's a time. Now, you see nitrogen and oxygen. So you know this tank has nitrogen and oxygen. But I don't see the CO2 tag. And I kind of.
So is that like a serial number or something that you
Oh,
look
that-
at the company to get that sheet again?
Oh, to get that sheet again, no. I mean, because these tanks, when it's done, actually you have to send them this tank back and they have to do a mixture and use the same tank again. I mean, I don't know how I don't know, I've never heard this question before. I've never even thought of it like that. But usually, you spend so much money to get a tank in, you want to, everybody around knows not to change, not to switch out these papers. This does happen so often, yes, and it's not even that. Sometimes even them, what they say is wrong. Their actual concentration can be off. So that's why there is a way of checking the gas, making sure that it is what it is by having a second tank. You use one tank to do your calibration. When you don't, you read the gas from the second tank. So to see what is the difference. Like let's say this is these numbers and the second one have different numbers. You can calibrate using one and read the other and see how close.
That's what I mean. You know, sometimes if people don't train properly and they don't know how important the number on that paper belongs to the tank, and they say, oh, save this for next tank, and then.
No, that's why that's why I'm explaining. That's why I'm not jumping. There's some stuff that I talk about that I know you guys know, but it's my job to actually just remind you guys. Like this is a very small detail, but yes, it's an important one.
I always run into Gary, so it's never a problem to just ask him to make sure that that tag stays.
It stays.
Sometimes, like people, not from training from you, but like.
Yes, yeah.
It's like, oh, I should take this paper and put it in my records.
Yeah, one more thing you want to do maybe is probably when you get a new tank, mark down, have your own tag of what the actual concentration. I mean, if you are worried about that, like me in my office, I have probably over 50 tanks sitting around, and I know that everybody knows not to remove the paper from a tank and switch it out because then you are just watering our credibility. One thing we want is we want to make sure that we're sending you stuff that works. And this gas is what can assure me that stuff works. For example, we'll go ahead right now and we will calibrate the system, and I will show you guys how to read the gas itself that is in the tank. And it should be pretty close because we use this gas to do the calibration. Once we're done and we read the gas, we have to be within that 1% of what this paper say and within the 1% of my sensor say. All of these guys have something called tolerance. 1% tolerance, 1% tolerance. So I want to be within that. If I'm not within that, either my sensor's bad or the gas is wrong. So again, it makes a lot of sense, but I have no control over someone communicating the paper. Maybe you put sign, never touch this paper.
Like plastic things that they tack onto the wall, like where they put like the dog. On
Sometimes
Fridays,
people don't
we
know,
put
and
dogs
they
on
just play
water.
the, sometimes they play the dog with the tone and they don't know how
So
boring it is. Like,
Exactly.
now we will,
photocopy it on something.
Yeah.
two more things is these cannot be too close from the wall. We want a foot because you need air circulation on both sides. The back, you can go as close as you can to the wall. There's a little pen called an evap pen. Do not make it close to the wall. Evap pen is needed because if no, the people that clean here, they'll be cleaning water all the time. The water won't get trapped into the pen, it will just roll on the floor and they just need to mop it. It's just water drips. So if the evap pen go bad, if you start seeing water rolling down, that means you probably crushed your evap pen. It doesn't work. And you can easily buy one, it's just a plug. Any questions here before we go to the actually how to actually make this work part? No questions. We can go to the next part. Very good. So, who is interested in putting this guy back into the enclosure and plug it properly? So, I'm not saying it because I'm being lazy, but I know how to do it already. Okay, oh no, one last part. Even though these looks like they are sealed, they are properly sitting, actually we need it to be sealed a little better than this. That's when this guy comes in place. It's a latch. All it does is it just applies pressure to these 4 bracts. 1, 2, 3, 4. So the animal never comes in contact with this, so you don't have to wash it. If you really, really want, if you're a germaphobe, you can get a napkin, whatever. These have glue. If you put it inside a washing machine, these tabs would just melt. So the way this works is that there's clips here. You just sit it, and you just push. And once you push in, what you want to do is you want to touch these 4 bracts and make sure they are sitting properly. I'm going to give you an example. Let's say Mr. Blank was sitting like this. What do you see here?
You can see a gap in the gap.
You can see a gap, and guess what? You almost get room air. That's how bad it is. That's how bad this hole is. So at the end, you just want to make sure that you just move them around. There's some guide, some plastic screw to guide them. So just make sure that they are all properly seated. And now you have a cage that's ready for testing. Some people asked me yesterday, how do you put the mice in? However, whatever works for you. Like me, I might grab it by the tail and just put it into this hole. Some other people might, oh, no, that's too hard. I want to put it on I want to pet it and slowly put it down, yes, lift it. It's just up to what you call humane. I mean, I'm just talking, I have my own animals. I have my own mice. Like, I've had them since they were babies, and I treat them the way I treat my co-workers. So I treat them really good. So it's up to you. It doesn't matter. You just have to get the mice in there. Whatever works for you. These cables, why do I pass them here? It's because if they go on the side, they might block some of your activity sensor beams. Yeah, so it just makes sense just slipping them through here. Doesn't matter the latch. Again, I'm complicated. I like to see the numbers. I hate seeing backward numbers, so it's the same thing. Now that it's latched, you just take it oh, you already burned to it. Just take it in there, and I will fix. Yeah. Okay, so right now we have a test in there with no wheel, but that's okay. So at this point we have a cage sitting in there, but guess what? We forgot the most important part. What will happen if we're going to test right now?
The door will be wide open.
No, it's not the door. The door doesn't matter. That's just temperature. Look at it again. What's the most important?
The
too?
The tube, that's what if you run right now, cage 1 will just be, it will be room air. It will just be reference. We can use, we'll have 2 reference points, the actual reference and cage 1.
Gotcha.
So yes,
Yeah.
very important. Yeah. So, go ahead and, oh, she's got it. And that, yes, you push it all the way until you feel it's all the way in. It's easier without gloves, it seems like, but let me make sure it wasn't all the way in. So let's have you try again. Go ahead, try again. Yeah.
She failed, huh?
Yeah, yeah, she fell. Push it, push it, push it, push it. Yeah, now it's all the way in. And I can make sure, yeah, it's all the way in.
So how do you know?
How do I know? Because I know she never done it before. And I pushed it in myself. After then, I realized, okay, she have to know that you have to put more pressure. Yes, you have to feel it
Did
right.
you test your friend here?
Huh?
Did you test your friend here?
No, he's good. He's been around me the last few days.
Okay, good.
So at this point, we have a system that is, before I go on the software part, did you guys, are you going to remember everything I said?
Here,
No question.
That's why we have
That's why I have this.
Oh, you have that. Oh, you never gave me time to go get my makeup done. Oh, I forgot about that.
We have only have one.
No, you have 16.
Oh, okay, okay, okay.
Yeah, the ranch, there's more here. Yeah, I just use one. Do you have 16? If you can use
We
all
actually have
16.
32, right?
No, not, you have 32 cage,
Right.
32 leads. It's because the extra cage, you don't need to latch it. You only need latch when you're running a test.
Right.
Yeah. So you have 16 extra cages. If you want to do your work outside, you can do all your work with your extra cage. Have an actual setup, 4 cages, and when you're ready, all you're doing is just switching the 2 cage. That way you don't have to actually do the work in there. You can get your animal ready, do whatever you want to do outside. So at this point, we have your computer doesn't work.
It's not my computer, but okay.
I turned it on. I would have loved to do it here. That
Yeah,
way,
me too.
That way but I can see that there's something there. It's in airplane mode. Okay, you can remove it, but just if you want to log in.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, log in, and we'll install this real fast. That way I show them how to install it. Installation takes 2 minutes. So we'll actually do it here on this computer, and I will have things pointed the right.
There's no network here?
Oh, I see a network cable here. No, that goes. What you can do, if this one has a network cable, you can borrow this one.
It does.
It does.
That's the one that we use for the NMR.
Okay. Well, and Mark gonna go out of this room anyway, so.
So you want to use this one?
Sure.
Or you just want to use the network cable? That one
Network
makes
cable.
more sense in terms of space.
I know.
Yeah, so what I can do is,
Just borrow that cable for now, or
yeah,
do you guys have any extra cable here? No?
right here. So,
Just put on me.
where are you?
Well, it will be cheap to buy one, so we'll get one.
Yeah, actually, I was supposed to come like 3-4 weeks ago, but when I emailed her, she told me that she just was, it took her 3, I told her, hey, no, I can bring my laptop. She said, no, you can't come until I get a computer. So I waited 3 weeks to come back for a computer.
And you still don't have time to do your makeup? No, I think it's logging in.
It's logging in.
But in my account though, but I think you can install it. Probably so everybody can use it. I hope I have the administrator privilege for you to install it. Otherwise, so we have to go
Otherwise,
outside.
we will do it on my computer.
Sure.
It's not a big deal. It's smaller. But on my computer, since I use it for many different things, I just can't have the software installed the way you guys should have it installed, and that is, you just click and it takes you to your actual files.
Right.
You did not wait till my password, right?
No, you're good.
Oh, man, it takes forever. So, oh, you take that cover off? Set up?
Yes, I want them to know. That's what we wanted. I will put it back on before. I know you said you wanted your cover on it. I remember that.
It's an option.
Yes, but I want them to see that there's that option.
Oh, of course, of course.
Yeah.
Interesting. Right now it's green lights. You can change.
Yeah, you just change it. It doesn't,
So in the daytime, it's green lights like that? No.
You set those things. You have control.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if you want no light whatsoever, you can kill the
No,
light
can you
completely.
turn on the white lights? Just I'm curious because I never seen that.
The white?
Yeah.
White lights like a little bit.
So it's mimic the sunlight, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That one is not mimic the sunlight.
So I'm just gonna turn it on and, so was you able to log in?
Several minutes.
Several minutes, okay.
Leave everything to us.
Oh, there we go.
Almost there. Okay.
So here,
Right, there it goes.
configuration. So this is what I don't want you guys to have to do, so I'm gonna install it in your computer, so you don't have to do what I'm doing now. It will just already be pointed there.
Cool.
So this,
All right. Cool.
yeah, this thing, there's two states, on, off, and you actually choose your color. And guess what? If you don't like this color, you see all this color, if you don't like it, you can define costume. There's the whole spectrum of, I mean, if you are just, actually some people use this for sleep study. That's why we also, sleep study. We also have the sleep analysis. They use different mixture of lights to see what makes them sleep better.
Right. You actually
No
can-
light making me sleep
You
better.
actually can do circadian study there.
Yeah,
Wow,
yes.
that's amazing. Wow. Actually, it's ready for you to install.
It's ready for me to install. Okay. So,
I don't think that they're high-speed process, right? So it looks like there's no light, but it allows us to see.
I know.
Yeah.
But on to the right one, right?
Yeah.
So we'll show the people that
Yeah. Correct.
What language is
I'm not
it?
sure what station.
I don't know. I was trying to think of that too.
I think he would have liked
Don't know.
that weight, that one extra portion of the line where it tests the weight amount. I think he would prefer that. Yeah, because it would have been something that they nested. It would have been far more beneficial.
okay, so
But
now,
we invest in that portion.
and in case if you happen to, because you can borrow the stick, actually, one of you can be in a different country, as long as you have this.
I know.
Someone can be running an experiment and you get the data in real time. So that's why I kept this guy.
Oh, software had to be run with this one on.
No, I'm just installing it.
Right,
You
right,
can
right.
put it in your pocket.
Right,
And
right.
this year is available. The software is, what won't be available is your initialization file. I was explaining to them.
Right. And you will share that with us.
Yes, I'm going to make you another initialization file since you are very interested in not having wheel. The reason you wasn't here, I explained it to them. You see the wheel, it blocks some activity sensors. And those activity sensors that are blocked, I have to do something called masking. So it masks it. So when you remove the wheel, I want to unmask it so you have the
Even-
full function, more beams.
better, yes.
Yes. So I will do that for you. I will make you that file.
Sure.
But, yeah, but also I told them I'm gonna send you something else. It's called a shroud. You see this piece is still blocking a couple of beams.
Right.
So Monday when I get there, I am going to send you a shroud that don't have this piece. So whenever you do an experiment with no wheel, you remove the wheel, you remove this guy, you put that shroud, and you don't use your actual initial, you use the one that says without wheel.
So we don't need to detach it.
Yeah, that way you don't have to do the dash. I'm gonna send you one, so that way you don't have to remove this thing. That's easier, that'll be easier than the screwdriver, remove this and maybe losing the screw. So I just send you one that will be cut here. So, you know, what will you do? Remove the wheel, remove this, put that, and choose the file with no wheel. That way, you see the activity sensor that is blocking, you will have full access to those. Because on that file, I'm going to unmask those.
How many minutes will you send?
16. Yeah, I'm going to say 16 shroud. Yeah. And it's free. It's for you, it's free. It's not charge.
Send it to him, okay?
Huh?
Send it to him.
Yeah, send to him, so it's free. So here, we have the stick that where is it? Aximax E. So all we have to do is just go to setup and run the setup, and it will install your initialization file, it will install your EXP file, then this you can just keep it somewhere. You can make copy of it.
Oh, shoot. I'm not sure I have the... No, I can't
If you hit
do it.
no, sometimes it'll let you do it anyway.
Ready?
Yeah, sometimes. No.
Go, no, click on it again, and click no, without trying to. No, it won't.
No.
Okay, we'll do it on my computer. So the only difference is that when you install it through here, on my computer, it's going to be a little bit more complicated because I have so many files installed. Here, there's only one initialization file, one EXP, so you will just point out directly to that. With me, I have some on my desktop, some on my. This does the stick will actually install it. Put those files at the right spot. So when you click, it just directs you straight to the file.
You don't have a phone here?
It's down at the end of the hall. So if you go out here and then just down by the windows, it's right next to the computer.
But in between, you know, you can go call them, have them give you.
No,
a
when I
password.
call, I have to be here because I have to show them. It doesn't matter.
Doesn't
We'll do it
matter.
later. Do it later.
So, to start an experiment, you go to an icon called Aximax. Double click on it. Now, a window such as this will pop up. Since you guys will have a second file, now it will make sense to show you. This is a default file that is already selected. And this is the file, the regular one. Let's say I've already made the second file, and that's the one you want to choose. What you do is you click on Open Experiment Configuration, and it will only show two, your original and one without wheels. And you select whichever one you want to use. Me, in this case, since I have your file on my desktop, I'm just going to point to my desktop, and it's this file, which was already defaulted. That's why it would have been nice to have so you guys see. But again, these things are easy to you guys are very smart people. You guys will figure it out with no problem. And again, everything and more, even more, because I can't talk about the whole book today, but everything is in this book. Everything is on that stick in PDF form. Everything is on our website, our whole manual. Right. Anything that if you want, don't pay completely attention. Just kind of listen to me. Make me think that you listen
So
to
we
me.
just have to find a way to share with all.
Yeah, it's in
all
PDF.
people
It's on
here, right?
PDF online.
You know,
find a way to share it with you guys. So.
Yeah, I mean, even if you want, you email me, I email you all the PDF, or I can even put it on a Dropbox link where
Yeah,
anytime
we
you-
can do that too, so no worries.
So this here, when you see this is good, that means everything initialized properly. But I am going to close this, and I am going to show you what it's supposed to do when it's bad. So one of you go ahead and open the software.
Just say yes.
So you can do that, or you can just click the top, which is the default one. There's only one default right now, is this system. So this is what will happen if, let's say, something is not plugged in, or there's a power cable, a power failure somewhere. So as you can see, you see some reds, you see failed. Whenever something failed, don't run a test, because that specific, I mean, you can continue and run a test. If it's one load cell, for example, that failed, on that specific channel, that scale won't work. You have to see success on every device. So all I did was I just unplugged the power on one of these boxes. And you can kind of see, it will tell you what address it is. It will be 60, and it will be a flow controller.
Flow
Yeah.
map 60
Yeah, 60 fair. So this has two functions, flow max and sample max. So not only that it provides flow, but it also sample. So it's two devices in one.
Okay.
Oh, am I slow enough to see the power plug now? I mean, I told you
他
that.
只是跟你讲，万一
So now refresh that top box.
他重新把它拔掉，看看它。
So now everything is there. So before you start an experiment, make sure that nothing fails. So this is the initialization part. The second part of an experiment is opening an experiment file. You click on File, Open Experiment Configuration. Again, when we install it on your computer, it will straight bring only one file. Because I use this to just install stuff over and over, so it shows a lot. And your file, I have it on my desktop, so I'm going to click desktop, 190105, 190105. And 190105 is what we name your system. 19 stands for year 2019. 105 means that was the 105th system that we sold in 2019.
It's a lot of money.
How about when we sell a small oxygen cell? that's like $400. Or when we sell some screws, $20. I mean, this might be over 200,000, but no, it's a mixture of big and small. So, and a window such as this will pop up. Now we will go to setting up an experiment and running an experiment. There is three parts of setting up and running an experiment. First, First, you have to go to the setup part. Click on setup. This here, this window will decide how many animals you want to run and where you are saving your file. Also, this is where you enter your subject ID or name, or whatever, however you want to call it. This gives you more, it gives you a couple more fields. One is labeled, like let's say I want to go by birthday. Oh no, let's do name. So I'm going to do name for all of them, copy to all subject, and info. One, I'm going to call him Minnie. The second one, I'm going to call him Mickey. So these, you don't have to use it. If you have a subject ID, which in most labs, people just already have a subject ID, which is a number, you can also enter those right there. Use a subject ID instead of using our label field. Here is when you take the scale and you weigh your animal before running the experiment. Why weigh your animal? Because we need the weight in order to calculate heat. Heat has a lot, for some reason, in order to equate heat, we have to know how much the animal weighs. That's why his idea of a body mass makes sense, because if you go into wrong experiments, the weight change. That's when you have an actual body mass cubby throughout the experiment, our software is changing this weight. Now, we have no way of knowing how much your animal, so we just go by the initial weight you told us your animal weighed. So let's say we are going to run 3 animals. One weigh 23 grams, one weigh 30 grams, one weigh 10 grams, and the last one, he's an OB, he weighs 50 grams. So, subject 4. And we're only running 4 animals. So one thing we need to do is we need to uncheck these orders, because if no, not bad, all it's going to do is it's just going to extend the time. It's going to go and read those cages, which will give you room air because there's no animal. If you want it to go faster, you want to just check the amount of animals you want to run. So, this is our goal right now. Our goal is to run 4 subjects. We gave their weight. There's flow here. Right now, this is set at 0.9 liter, which is 10 milliliters short of a liter. That's what we are, that's how much air we are sucking from the cage. This will give you a good range from like a 10-gram animal all the way up to a 75 gram. Now, if you happen to have a mice that have a lot of muscles and weigh more than 75 grams, what you want to do is you want to set like a test experiment first with 0.9. What you're looking at the delta percentages. In the research field, most wants to keep their delta within a specific range. Usually it's about 25% in terms of changes. So if you see that like you're reaching 35%, that means either you need a bigger cage or you need more air into the cage. So if I take a giant rat and I run it in this cage, can I run an experiment? Yes, I can. Would it be accurate? Yes, it will be accurate. But guess what? Your CO2 reading will be a lot higher because you have these giant animals and you are not pushing enough air. But if I increase the air to 5 liters and I put him in there, so I'm sucking 5 liters from the outside, my deltas will go low. I mean, it's bad. I am confining him in a small cage, but there's not a big deal as long as your flows are good enough. So this here is decided by your deltas. Usually 0.9 is good up to 75, 80 grams. After that, kind of run like a small test and look at your deltas and research where do you want your delta. You decide that. That's where the airflow comes in. And you can raise the airflow. You see these restrictors? I told you that how it's a regulator. It can regulate up to 1.2 liter. So right now it's set at 0.9, but guess what? If you have very tiny small animals, what will happen to your deltas? They will be what? Very small. You can decrease the air to get your deltas to be within that range. So that's what this flow. The only thing is that you have to have, since there's only one pump that is sucking all 8, it's the same flow everywhere. Unless if we had different restrictors, and that's not how we do it. You have the same size restrictors everywhere. So what you can do is you can have 8 giant mice from channel 1 to channel 8, and you set that at 1 liter, and you have 8 small mice from channel 9 to channel 16, and you set that at 0.5 liter. but 1 to 8 use the same pump, and 9 to 16 same pump. So at this point now, one last thing to do is you have to save your experiment. I'm not going to give you the name, just today's date. So since I already had the same name, it will ask me if I want to override it. I don't care, I'll override that. So there's a backup directory. That's what I was telling him, that you can back up your work into the network if the computer is hooked onto the network. I am going to tell you guys that I don't like having network on these computers. You know why? Windows pushes their own update. Even if you disable it, sometimes they find ways. And guess what? Let's say you have a 3-day experiment for the weekend. You set it on Friday, you go home Saturday, Windows push an update and restart your computer. What happens? So you might have a network cable to do certain things. If you're going to run an experiment and you don't want anything happening to it, unplug the network cable. Yeah, believe me, unplug it.
Not about the Wi-Fi. Disconnect the Wi-Fi.
Just disconnect it.
Everything.
Yeah, disconnect everything that can cause anyone else to push an update and turn off your computer. I mean, if your work is important, if there's no importance to it and you can restart back to 0, no problem. I'm just telling you that that's what happens in a lot of labs. I mean, they call me like, well, something happened. What can you? I can do nothing. If the computer will stop, it can't record when the computer is turned off and turn back on, unless the computer knows how to log back in and set up the test, and and run. There's nothing I can do. So network cable, most of the time, remove it, unplug it. So at this point, we have the experiment setup done. We assume it's not a giant mice, it's not a small mice. They're about 20-something grams, even though this 10 it's not real, so we will go with it. So second part of the experiment is the property. Once we're done with the property, training is actually done. So this is the part I want you guys to pay attention the most. And it's in the book also. This here, decide how long does it take to switch from one cage to a cage. How long does it take to measure from one cage? You guys' system is very fast, 20 seconds for each cage. So if we went in a 4-cage experiment, every minute and 20 seconds, I'm going through 4 cages. Every minute and 20 seconds. So I'm getting a lot of data. So what happens if I change this cage measure and I make it, for example, 1 second? What will happen is, yes, it's going to shorten by 2 seconds on each cage, but guess what? Is it enough time to actually measure? There's another one, cage settle. To understand cage settle, I have to explain a little thing here. We're going from cage 1 to cage 2. You have this guy, he's switching from cage 1 to cage 2. How do we make sure that the air in cage 1 is not mixed with the sample in cage 2? When we measure cage 1, before measuring cage 2, we are purging for 17 seconds. So we are sucking from cage 2, but we are not measuring for 17 seconds. 17 seconds is what will guarantee that cage 1 sample didn't corrupt cage 2. So 20 seconds for a cage. 3 seconds measuring, 17 seconds before that settling, purging, making sure that the cage before isn't going to corrupt the cage that I am measuring now. You have a 20-second system. Can I make this a 15 and 5? Yes. Initially, when they tested, that's where they started. But guess what they found out? They found out that with 15 and 5, 5 is a decent number measuring, but 15 is not a decent number settling, because there's a tiny little bit. And you know how we do those things? We'll take one mice, put it on cage 1, cage 2 empty. Mice cage 3, cage 4 empty. We measure cage 1, cage 2. Cage 2 should be what? Room air. It should just be reference, because and if you guys can actually test that. You can test this thing here by doing it until you find your sweet spot if you're not happy with this. But This is good. So what will happen is we measure cage 1, it gives us a number. Cage 2, you expect room air, and there's a little bit more CO2 than room air. So that's how you know that, okay, that little bit of CO2 came from cage 1 that didn't purge completely. At 15 seconds, you still get a tiny little bit from cage to cage. 17 seconds is completely purged.
So if we have only 8 cages and
4. We have a system. We have 4 cages set up for this specific experiment that we are going to run.
I mean, if I only needed to 4 cages, so how many do I need to fill?
The sample, the actual reference. This will depend on the room. If we were running an experiment with all of us in here, I would tell you to go with 32 reference as much as possible because there's a lot of changes. If I'm running 4 cages and I am going to leave the room and no one is going to come inside the room, maybe I will pick a small number, like let's say reference 2. Maybe I will pick a bigger number, reference every 16 sample. As you can see, it's 20 seconds per sample. So right now, every 16 sample is going to read the room air, which means you will do room air. Cage 1, 2, 3, 4. Cage 1, 2, 3, 4. Cage 1, 2, 3, 4. Until 16 times, then it do a reference again. But if we have changes, it's through the day and people are coming in and out. You want to reference as often as possible because you want to see those. You want to capture those room changes. Does it make sense? So, but a lot of people will tell you, I'll do 4 cage, I'll reference after each cycle. I'll do 16 cage, I'll reference after each cycle. Right now, it's going to do 1, 2, 3, 4 reference. 1, 2, 3, 4 reference. 1, 2, 3, 4 reference. Because it's in the daytime, people will come in and out. Me, I run the same experiment, and I'm about to like start it and lock this door and go home and come back the next day. I will probably do 16. Where I'm going to do 4 cycle, reference 1. 4 cycle of 4 cages, 16 sample, and reference 1. Or even if I'm going to do it on a weekend where there's no one that's going to even come and there's no janitor coming in and I want a whole bunch of data, because reference take the same time as a sample. 17-second purge, the last sample line, and 3-second reading room air. Okay, when you hear a reference, it's nothing else but a box. We have a reference box that's in there. It's like the cage. It's black. It's in there. If you see, there's a black box in the back. When it reads, it just selects to read from that black box, and that box is inside the enclosure. So, but since all of us are in this room, and we are going to do for each cycle reference. And plus, it's quick, it's 20 seconds. So here you have a heat calculation equation. You are welcome to use ours. It's the most standard one, most basic one. I've seen people that made up their own heat calculation equation. You can do it too and enter it. If you have anything better than what we have, this is just the most standard one. You can choose, if you want to make your own, you can choose to normalize heat throughout the experiment. You can choose to not normalize heat, normalize it after you are done, when you get your data and you normalize heat your own way. So here, this is for when they have their costume, with their constant 1, constant 2, constant 3. You just enter those, and it's still going to be this equation with your own constants. Here, this is just the actual calculation parameter. If you're not interested in milliliter, you want to make it liter. You're not interested in gram, in kilogram, you want to make it grams. Very, very basic. Any questions about this? Most important is to look at the 17 and the 3 are the most important stuff in here. 17 and 3, they decide a lot. Now, why not 10 and 3? Again, it will do it, but guess what? Not accurate. You are not purging enough from cage to cage. That's the only difference here. Mm-hmm. 17 is what I am pretty sure that if you use 17 and 3, 17 seconds is enough time for the air from cage 1 to get purged out of the tubes, which is the yellow tube and red tube, and go into the sensor. 17 seconds. The next thing is feeding. Feeding, this is only important if we're going to talk about this. The same apply to drinking. So we have 2 ways of recording feeding. You have the feeder, we put food. You run an experiment for 3 hours. Initially you had 10 grams, now you have 7 grams. The animal ate 3 grams, and that's your basic overall feeding data. But also, we also break it down to a second file. We have a second file that we call bout, feeding bout. Not only that you know that the animal ate 3 grams, that's the basic one, 10 was in, now it's 7, the animal ate 3 grams. How did it eat those 3 grams? When did it eat those 3 grams? We do something called feeding bout. So these decide a feeding bout. If the animal goes there and eat for 10 seconds, we say that there's a feeding bout. And it's recorded in the total, but it's recorded in this special file that we call feeding bout file. If the animal go in there, these 2 things have to happen in order for an event, a feeding bout, to be added, to be recorded. He has to go there for at least 10 seconds and at least eat 0.03 grams. Then it records it and record when did it eat it and record the timing. Oh, it went there from this specific time and it ate until this specific time and it ate this amount of food. So he has to be there for a certain amount of time and eat a certain amount of food in order for a feeding bout, which is just a stamp, right? Okay, he ate in total 3 grams, but how did he eat those 3 grams? At this specific time, he ate this amount for this amount of time. At this specific time, now, if he goes in there for only 8 seconds, and he just plays with the food, and he only ate 0.01. It isn't recorded, yes, in the total. You know in the total, but you won't get like a bout, like an event. Like, hey, he was there for a meal. You know, there's eating as a meal, and there's just playing with the food, like just, yeah. Now, can you change these numbers? Yes, you can. If you believe that no, this is too wrong. If you believe that 5 seconds is what you want, but guess what you will get? You will get a whole bunch of feeding bout data. And how meaningful would it be? You choose what is meaningful to you. To you, if 10 seconds is just too short for you to get, you don't want that much. You want to, you only want to get the real meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. He has to be there eating for 1 minute, and he has to at least eat a gram. You won't get a lot of bouts because they don't do that often. Mm-hmm. Same thing applies to the drinking. It's the same concept, drinking bout. If you just go and if he has to lick the water for a certain amount of time and drink a certain amount of water for you to get a stamp, an event, right? And if you click on the event window, anytime there's a bout, it will record it. Not only that you will get a file at the end with all the bout, but throughout the experiment you can come and click the event window and see, oh, he was at the drinker for this amount of time and he drank this. It's an event that we also record at the end as we just add them all together in one file. Here, not very important. You don't have to change much. One thing is window counting. Some people don't like to get too much activity data, They just want activity around a specific amount of time. The window counting lets you decide when do you want to record activity data. Some people say, okay, I just want to record activity data after the mice eat. This happened around this time, so some people just record all the activity data. So that's what this is telling you. This is the activity sampling rate. 1 minute is good because remember you have all of these devices. You don't want the activity only to be sending data. So we believe 1 minute, you know, position sampling rate at one hertz. That book is very good at explaining these little things to you, but it is not such a big deal. The last thing also is the running wheel event. This year, it tells you that it's the same as sending you a feeding. At the end, you will get a file that tells you he had this many, you know, turn, and this was the distance. But how did he do it? When did he do it? If he goes in there and runs for 20 seconds and have at least 5 different turns, then it's an event where you get, hey, running day, he was just here, he ran for 15 seconds, and he had 6, but if you don't reach those goals, then it's not an event. It just gets added to the total at the end. Environment, 2 things. Right now, we have this set so that the right is on for 720 minutes and off for 720 minutes. So which is a half day, 12 hours. And as you can see, since our schedule started yesterday at 7 a.m. So, which means yesterday 7:20, so we should be on the right right now. So at 7 p.m. tonight, it's gonna turn to. So if you want to change the schedule and you want to make it a 12 to 12, and you want it on from 12 p.m. to 12 a.m., what would you do? You put it, today's date, 12, doesn't matter, a.m., p.m. You know, if you look, I would do a.m., and I would do, okay, 12 p. I would do p.m. and I would do, okay, right comes first. So, okay, it's gonna do this 7 p.m. right, 7 p.m. dark. So you just measure it to where the timing falls and repeat. It will do it over and over every day. Now, if I don't just want to do that, I can add a different step. So it will go 12 hours, then whatever else. So if I just want it to mess everything up, so nothing works, if I do this, what will happen now? If I do this right now, and I'm going to change this, and what will happen now is that we have every minute it changes. Yeah, so look, every minute. So we'll leave it at every minute until we start our experiment, until we're done with our experiment. So right now, that's what we have. We have every minute, like the cycle is 1 minute on, 1 minute off, 1 minute on, 1. This doesn't matter. This is fading. Instead of going just white, red, you know what it does? White, pink, a little bit pink, red. Then guess what? Come back again, pink, a little bit, you know, it will just fade. And this decides, you know, that ramp in thermos phasing. Again, that's why I told you have complete control. Right now it's just white, red, white, red, white, red. But you can change that. They do this because they say, oh no, when it goes from light to dark, it just scares the animal. It's stressful. So we just want to you know, go from white and slowly turn off the light. I mean, I don't do that to my daughter. Go to sleep now, you know. It don't work like that. But again, they're more human than me. It seems like it's time to go to sleep. Go to sleep right off. No, we don't. They have to. So this is just ramping the light. So we'll do the same thing with the same thing can be done with the controller. So right now, what I did right now is that I remove every step on the temperature controller. So if I remove every step on the controller and I say, guess what? there's nothing here, which means this has control now. So anything I want now is done using this here. So I set it at 50. Guess what? It will do is make the heat button turn on and it will go at 50. So this has no control right now. But anything in there will get fried. If I want to take control back, what do? I add a step, and if I look the schedule, right now the minute really doesn't matter. It's just a 12-hour thing. But if I loop it, it's the same thing over and over. So I add a step, controller, 23, watch, bam. This has control. So control is done by adding steps. Now, if I want to make it different, guess what? I can tell it, hey, do this in 2 minutes. Then I want to freeze them for 10 minutes. So after this, I want you go to 10 degrees. So save to controller. So what will happen right now is that for 2 minutes, it's going to try to reach 23. So it's about 23. But after those 2 minutes are gone, guess what it's going to do? It's going to ramp down and try to get to 10. Now, how fast can it do it? It's a cooler. Again, you have to be realistic. Can it go from just hot to no, it can't. So yeah, you see, it's going to try to go down to 10. But again, you have to do it realistically. You have to kind of know, okay, how long can something this volume, you see how big it is to get to that. So you just have to understand what is realistic and what's not. Yeah, you can't go from 50 degrees, even a stove, even your oven. You don't just turn it on and it just go to 400 degrees. Yeah, your AC, you know, so it's the same thing here. So again, you can have as many steps as you want. You can set it up so it works for 2 months in advance. You can sit home and design your schedule. This is what I wanted to, and be really, think about this special schedule. Come back here as long as you have it mapped out, it will do it. Any question? Any question? There's no miscellaneous. Remember to always save it to the controller. If you add it, you don't save it, the command is never sent.
So for normally just adjust it to 23 degrees?
No, yeah, if you just want 23, you put start 23 and 23 forever. And look, you can even put 1 minute, look, 720, 1440 minutes, which is a day. And look this is the guy that's going day after day after day. You do 1 day, 22, 22, look, you do it forever.
So, and for the environment, so do we need to set up the time?
Yeah, it's the same thing. So our schedule started yesterday. For example, if I want to start today at 4, and it's 3:55, and I want my schedule to start at 4. I will come at 3:55 or 3:56, and I know it. And at 4, it's going to start. It's going to go to that schedule. You save to controller, but it only starts. This is the thing. You can set in the future easily. What's bad is when you set in the past. Because then it's going to go, okay, when was Thursday? When was Wednesday? What time was it? When was Wednesday? 5. Wednesday at 5 p.m. And it's going to start calculating from yesterday to your step. But if you do the future, for example, if I remove this and I wanted to do, today is June 27, June 27, and I want to start something at 3:10, I can enter it, enter June 27, 3:10, and nothing happened until then. So I can change this to June 27, and I can make this 3. What time is it? Oh, here, 3:07. So I can do 3:09, and I'll do save to controller. So now it will just run whatever it is, but our schedule, this schedule will start at that time.
Okay.
Questions? So say to controller and kind of think about it. What time is it? How long do I want this? So you will figure it out. You'll get a hang of it. So at this point, we have everything set up for our experiment. Next thing to do is to deal with calibration process, then run. It's going to run a few cycles. We're going to export the data, then training is done. I know you guys, when I told them this might take 3 hours, they thought I was joking. I wasn't joking, sir. It can take over that. I just minimized it when I told you guys 2 to 3 hours. So at this point, it's calibration. So this is not you guys' number. You guys' number is 0.4997, but it will just round it to 0.5, so you guys are okay. So calibration, there's 2 lines, O2 and CO2. You can do both. Whichever one is clicked is the one it's doing. Right now it will just do CO2. As you see, it removes the O2 steps. I click it, it do both O2, CO2, which I will tell you guys, do it this way. You click on calibration, it will ask you to click on start calibration. We click start calibration. Here, make sure all the necessary gas tanks are turned on and plugged in. So, this is where we go to the gas tank. And this is where we plug in the yellow one. And this is where we look at the gauge, make sure it's about 10 psi, 10 psi, 10. This, 10. About, not necessarily, around 10. So, after that, yeah, our gas, yes, so now, it does it all for you. You have to touch no knob, you have to do no, and you guys are lucky because a year ago there was 3 knobs for calibration. I mean, you guys have done this where one guy will be, oh, is it good? Yeah, sweet spot, this, that, there's nothing, there's none of that here. A lot of people would love to have a system like this because calibration is what people hate to do in this type of sensors. So it will do its thing. 2 things can happen for it to fail, usually. Usually the gas is not on. Most of the time, that's one of the things. The second one will be that you don't have enough pressure on your gas tank. And it will tell you, usually you have messages such as, your reference air is out of range. Your O2 reference air is out of range. That means your gas is not turned on. So it will say, it will give you a message. Look at the book. The book will tell you what those messages mean. The book or the stick. The stick have all the PDFs. So calibration takes about 3, 4, 5 minutes. So there's no reason of understanding the calibration process, really. It makes no sense.
0.4997, that's what we got
From the certificate.
And the
Yeah, yeah, but once we close it and open it, it's going to round it because as long as this one number at the end, if this 7 was 5, then it won't.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's going to round it to 0.50, which is what you guys requested. So it's pretty close.
How long is the total calibration time?
About 5 minutes.
Okay.
So the other thing is that calibration can be done while you have your animals inside the cages. The cages has nothing to do with calibration. Calibration, the only thing that is reading for is just the reference inside when there's no animal in the black box. So calibration have nothing to do with your actual cages. You can be in there petting your animal, giving food, doing everything. You can do everything else while it's running. So during calibration, there's only 3 ports that opens up. One is the one for the solder line to get a 0. The one for the gas line to get a known gas concentration and the one to read the actual room air reference. So these two, the top two steps usually take the most time. Here, as you can see, the CO2 is going to take it as close as possible to zero and read the voltage. This is when it's reading from the solder line. Here, I was telling you guys, never open that O2 sensor to try to see what's in it, because what's in it is very hot, 725 degrees Celsius. Actually, the O2 sensor, the way it works is two tubes. They put a reference air in one tube, they put the actual gas in another tube, and they hit both at 725. Guess what happened? It tried to keep itself at equilibrium. So now some O2 molecules will migrate. The one that has the most, some O2 will migrate on the other side. So it's the same amount of molecules. So now since we know this is the known gas, this is what it measures. Based on how many migrated, what is it, we know the actual concentration of the other. So I mean, it's pretty cool, but it's not cool to touch it. It's hot. So as you can see, the CO2 is zero. It's zeroed out, and yeah, I know it's boring. I'm getting ready to yawn myself, but it's done almost. This is after calibration. We press run. It's going to run a few cycles, we stop it, and I'll show you guys how to export the data and kind of make sense of it. And I will also do a few things while it's running. I'm going to mimic food. I'm going to put a few screws in the, we're not going to mimic water. I don't want to put nothing in the water bottle, but, oh, it's this. We're going to put a few screws inside those feeders, and we're going to remove a few and have some feeding data. And also we're going to put our hand in the cage and act as if there was a mouse. That way we have something to look at. No reason to do many cycles, and this is fast, 20 seconds. So we're just going to run the experiment for about 5 minutes, do a few things, then show you how to export it, and we'll be done in the next 15, 20 minutes. And when I say 15, 20 minutes, I'm on my own. It means 25 minutes in reality. I always minimize. You ask me calibration, I'll go about 5 minutes. It might be 6, 7 minutes. I don't want you to start getting impatient, so I'm just trying to, oh no, it's okay, my man, don't worry. It's not that wrong. That's what it means. But it's almost done now. Especially the last step is just calculating the gain. So, important thing about calibration, at the end, it should never say it failed. First thing to look at is that 10 psi, gas is plugged in, and most of the time you won't have, if you have calibration process, gas is on 10 psi, you have big problems, which you won't see now in 2-3 years, once it's time to chorus. And how much would it cost to do this when we give you the price? These people, yeah, I mean, it's expensive. These things are very expensive to serve this. So, calibration complete, turn off all calibration gas, thank God. This is what you want to always see. So,
when calibration, can we open the door?
Oh, you can do anything inside. Yeah, you can do anything. You can have your mice in it. You can, but now that calibration is complete, we don't have to unplug the tank. We don't really have to. But I like for people to keep unplugging the tanks, just in case. Because like, my box just open a valve. When it's done, it closes. But how about someone put a small hole in the tube? What will happen right now? By mistake, someone has something sharp and it just cut the tube a little bit. All the tank, whatever is in the tank will leak out. So it will make sense for one of you guys to unplug the tank, and that will be some type of expert. Okay, good. Very good. Just sit it there. Wonderful. That's the process. So at the end, calibration is done. earlier I told you guys that there is a way to know if your sensor is working. So we calibrated and we told it what? It was 20.5 and 0.995. That's the actual gas we use for calibration. We can verify that. Here I told you guys it's only reading 3 ports. That guy only reads 4 ports in total. One is the 0 port, soda line. The second one is the span port, car gas. The third one is the samples, depending on what cage, 1, 2, 3, 4. The fourth port is the reference, which is the bus. So here, if we click on span means it's only reading from the yellow line, which is the gas tank. So there was a little bit of air left in the gas tank. So in the tube, so it's reading that right now, but it's going to go down because it's sucking whatever was left out. You can plug back the tank back in. What should we expect? No, push the top. Yep, until it clicks.
Yeah.
Click?
Yeah.
Okay. That's why I wanted you to plug it back and make sure that you know how to. So we say our concentration was 20.5. If I am not reaching 20.5, I'm not happy. I would say there's something wrong with this sensor or the gas must be wrong. If I am not within 1% of it already rounded it, of 0.0.5, either the gas is wrong or there's something wrong with the sensor. The CO2 is always more accurate. The O2 takes time, but 20.5, 20.48, guess what? I am well within 1%. Good? Okay. So, to make you guys understand how this window works, I am going to do something. I'm going to select sample, for example. Sample, now I am going to select a specific cage. I'm going to select cage 1. So right now it's reading on the sample port, cage 1. And cage 1 is reading room air, which is 20.9, about 20.9, 0.059. Very decent for room air. I am going to breathe in cage 1, and let's see if it can see my breathing.
There it goes.
What did you see?
CO2 percentage is changing.
It went
So
up
it's
through the roof, right? Probably more than it can actually withstand, because that's, I mean, CO2 of 3. I'm a human, so much. This is to show it's us. We are we are we are bad for nature. Most of the CO2 is cows and us, and the stuff we created. It's not animals, it's not trees, usually it's us. So, again, now that I plug that back to the inside the cage, which is what inside the cage, room air, I should expect what? CO2 level to go down, O2 level to go up, 20.9 to room air about usually, CO2 depending on how many people are. If we shut these 2 doors, I promise you we will reach 0.1 quickly. Right now, if we shut, with us only in here and we shut the 2 doors. But with these doors open, we have more air coming from the outside, 0.7, 0.07, 0.06. Good? Understood this window? You could do it for each channel actually. If you think you have a leak, for example, let's say you're running an experiment and one cage is completely water, is completely different from this other. Your concentration of CO2 is very low on one cage. Maybe one of the blocks are not in, or maybe there's something you can't understand. One of these tubes are not plugged in correctly. What you can do is that you can just block the flow on the cage, and you'll see. If you block it for about 1 minute, it should go to 0, because guess what? It's not sucking anywhere. It will just suck whatever is in it. And this, I mean, there's so many things you can do with this window. But I'm not going to bother you guys with those. It's not that important. But it's just good to understand that there's more you can do if you read the book. Now that we're done with calibration, the gas, let's turn it off. Oh, it's your turn. That way we know you know how to remove it. Very good. So, once that's done, the next step we did set up properly, calibrate, now run. So, we are going to run, but before running, we are going to do a few little things here. We're doing cage 1, 2, 3, 4, right?
Yeah.
So in the first cycle, we're not going to do nothing. So once the cycle starts, what it's doing is very simple. We're going to go back to the concept. You see the first one, it did say measure in reference. So at first, it just measured the room and have a reference point. And the reference point will always be your in. O2 in, CO2 in. That's where it gets your ins from. The out is from the cage. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through one cycle. Next time it goes to 1, I am going to be breathing on cage 1. And let's see the difference between the first reading on cage 1 and the next reading on cage 1. So now it's settling 4. We told it to reference every 4 cycle. So once it does 4, guess what? It's going to do reference, room air again. And if anything changes in the room, your in will change. So if you have people coming in and out, you want to reference as often. If there's no one, there's not many changes, you don't have to reference as often. That's what it means. So if we would have done 16, it would do 16 samples, then reference. Now it's settling 1. I'm going to blow in a different cage. So we'll do the cage 3. Did it reach cage 3 again?
No, still 7.
7-3.
No, it's not.
Measuring 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you see cage 3 what happened?
Turn red.
Turn red, you know why? Because I'm not a mouse. I don't weigh 20 grams. This is way below range of what you expect of a mice of 20 grams. I don't remember how much I said he weighed. And this is not realistic. Whenever you see red, it's something that's unrealistic that is happening.
3 was 10 grams.
3 was 10, okay, 10 grams producing that much. He's
Yeah.
telling you, hey, I'm red. There's something really wrong. Good? So, within an experiment, anything red, just there's something is wrong. Okay, so now look at the VO2. Look at the VCO2. 167,000. Come on, it's not realistic for. Usually they're about 5,000. A healthy mice about 25 grams and about 4 or 5,000. That's where VO2, VCO2 ranges. Very good. So now, this is the metabolic window. The flow, again, they are regulated to be around 0.9, but guess what? They should always be within 2%. If not, they turn red. So cage 1, you see those things, it's the same thing here. They make them, but they cannot make all of them, they cannot make a million of them to be exactly the same. So the hole in it is a little needle that makes it. Anytime it makes the hole is different from the next. So they just should be within a specific range. And since we use these actual numbers to do the calculation, it really doesn't matter because we measure it actually at the flow control. So we want 0.9, but you get cage 1, 0.913, cage 2, 0.907, as long as they are within 2% of each other. And if they are not, they will turn red. So it doesn't matter much. Here, what's important is the heat. You can see here not normalized. You have 9.5 kcal per hour. My RER was 0.8556, which is not too much fat food, not too much, in between. I mean, that's what I have. I have bacon and, no, that's fat. But, so you guys will pay more attention to the VO2 and the VCO2. Next window is activity. Activity, we shouldn't get many beside me going and putting those things in, but usually you should get a whole bunch of 0 with no animals. The window, how to interpret these, you have X count and XM. Here go a sensor, it has 16 beams. If I just put my hand onto one beam, remove one beam, remove the same beam, remove the same beam, remove, that goes into the total because it's one beam that's being broken. Ambulatory, just think of it as ambulant, moving. Ambulatory is when it brings from one beam to the other. So if you want to know the distance traveled, you don't go with the total. The total, because he can sit there if he has a smart mouth and just go, let me mess with him. Put his power on one, put it back. If he's smart, yeah. So that doesn't talk much about activity. That is just the amount of being broken. Ambulatory is like movement. To know movement, we do it. We will calculate it for you. But if you really want to make your own calculation, at the end of the experiment, take the X, add it to the Y count, multiply it by 1/2 inch. Why 1/2 inch? That's the spacing between the, no, in your case, 1 inch. You have, let me let me make sure. It's an inch. Yeah, 1 inch. Multiply it by 1 inch, and if there was 100 X, 100 Ys, add it together, 200 times inch, 1 inch, so his movement was 200 inches. But on the ambulatory, not the total. The total, because sometimes he's sitting there in front of one beam and he's grooming and it's counting, it's the total. Or something, a cable is in front of one beam and it's counting it, it goes on the total. So your total really doesn't mean too much. The meaningful numbers is the ambulatory. So the Z, as you can see, why don't we have Z ambulatory here?
So we only have one Z. We only have one Z level.
Yeah, but X also we only have one. Why? But we have ambulatory on X and we have total on X. Z we don't have ambulatory. We only have total. Why?
Because there's no way for it to mark more.
Thank you. In the Z-axis, you will have to defy gravity to be up in the air, as I told you guys earlier. So this is what will make No, you understand that part, right? Z, we don't have ambulatory because it's not possible for the mice to fly and walk in the air. Very good. Now we'll spin some wheels, see how that works. So we spun some wheels. The wheel count, I mean, this here is not, it's just my hand on the Z-axis as I'm spinning the wheel. So I spun wheel number 2 first. The total count was 32. This is just the accumulated count. So this number is going to just give you accumulated throughout the whole experiment. This number is the count within that specific reading. So if
Are there X-axis sensors in our units?
yes.
So what if they start climbing up the food? And also there can be inner ear problems where they do backflips, and I've had mice to
Yes.
compensate for that. They actually jump up onto the food rack and then they flip off.
Okay.
So won't that technically
B,
activate X? But I
no,
guess
X is the bottom. That would be Z.
Z.
Yeah, that would be when you go like, wouldn't that go in the ambulatory Z? We don't expect that to happen.
Yeah.
That yes, they do. I've seen them do a whole lot of stuff, but I've never seen them be able to. I mean, they could flip. That's just a second move, but to just like walk in the air.
Yeah. I'm more wondering if they stayed up on top of like the food and just kept like fiddling about right there.
Yeah,
Still catch
Z.
that on a sensor.
No, yeah, on the Z, on the total.
Okay.
Yeah, that's when if you get one Z that gives you that amount of number, yes, it will catch it.
Okay.
Yeah, but at the end, if we do when it does a drawing and recalculate and show you, it won't show you that part because it's the plane and we're only looking at the X and the Y.
Gotcha. Okay.
So here, again, as you can see, there's nothing accumulated. Since it was 7, it stays 7. Here, the first time it was 32. The second time it was 44, and no, the first time it was 32. The second time, what channel is this? 2. Second time it was 45. So 45 and 32, 77. So this accumulates. This is just the number right within that. So now, next thing, feeding. Feeding, what is important is what is happening here. Accumulated, as you can see, minus 3.5, minus 11. This is because I added those screws before we started the experiment, so it went in the negative. So you always want to add your food before you start the experiment. If you want to add food within the experiment, it's possible. You come to feeding, refill roadside. This is what I should have done. So you disable all, put the food, enable all. But if you don't want to do that, you could choose to do it one by one. Like you're only feeding 2 or 3 that ran out of food. So now you see, it all tails to 0. These numbers are a more accurate description of what we're doing right now. So what I'm going to do is we have 4 of them and I added food in 2. I'm going to remove the food I added and let's see how it behaves. I mean, not food, screws. So on 4, I remove the screws. On 2, I remove the screws. So now, negative. This is what is eaten as far as our experiment. this is what these screws here weighs. If you have a scale, if we take these screws, we put them on a scale, we add these two numbers, I'm pretty sure they will be very close. You have a scale, where is your scale? So 1154 and 350. Eleven, 354, 350. Do is 15.07 here.
Yeah.
15.05.
Yeah, but this was about 0.02 before we said.
Yeah.
We never tell it.
You're getting it, 15.05.
Okay, so to tell you the truth, very accurate. So, and within an experiment again, if you want to add food, you do it using the logger. This guy here, these numbers following it is a little bit hard, but one thing I'm going to tell you is that at the end, it's not every reading here that is used as your data. We have a smart filtering, because sometimes the animal goes, and guess what it does? It puts its paw on the feeder, and it makes it as if someone just added food. Yeah, it will show here. Yeah, okay, it went up, but no, we have smart filtering at the end of your experiment. Best way to look at what is happening, feeding-wise, is to come to feeding, refill those cells, and you can see what is happening. Both feed and drink. One line is feed, one line is drink. So, we are done with this part, feeding and drinking. Next thing is event. Here, again, I was telling you guys earlier that the feeder, these are the bouts. The feeder, it tells you, oh yeah, at interval 3, at count 3, interval 9, what happened is that 0.09 was eaten, gram. Here, it tells you, oh, at interval 1, 7 count on the wheel. 77 count. Now, you see those earlier, those numbers, those thresholds? That's what these means. If you think you're getting too much of these, you can increase those numbers. So only what's meaningful to you as an event show up inside your experiment. So the other one, user, you create these. Let's say within an experiment, you decided to inject an animal with a specific solution. So you come to experiment, add event, and add whatever you did, and to whoever you did it. If you did it to all subject. If you did it to subject 1, it will only show the ones that are selected for and their name. You see subject. I gave 1, 2, 3, 4.
How would you enter it if you did it to 1 and 3?
Oh, you did it to, if you did it to 1 and 3, you enter it for 1, write it down, and you come back and you add an event for 3.
Okay.
So either you did it to all or to one specific one. Yeah. 1, you click 1, add, and you go to 3, add, and then. So, environment, here, you don't have these. You don't have a relative humidity sensor inside that's what that brass, if you decide to add a humidity sensor, it's already incorporated in your software. What to look at is the enclosure temperature, where it's at, and the set point. It's set at 21.6, but it's at 20.6, so the heat turns on. 20.6, it should go up. But in between, the set point came down. So it should still try to go up. Set point went up. So it's just trying to keep up. Here, the red is the actual temperature. The green is the set point, where it's trying to get. So, remember those. Actual temperature, set point. Red is the actual temperature. Green is where it's trying to go. So this here, we don't have control over it. That's the temperature sensor that's inside. There's a probe, a temperature probe. That's where it's getting this number. This number we have control. We set this number. Either by removing all the stuff, do it here, by adding a schedule, do it on the computer. And on the computer, if you set a schedule, you turn off the computer. Again, once you click save to controller, it saves it to a controller that's there. So you can unplug your computer and it will just run whatever script you have going on. Same thing with the lights. So next thing here is graph. Graphing is very easy depending on what's important to you. Just click on graph and look at what you want to graph. In our case, we want VCO2, and we'll do VO2. Where is VO2? VO2. We only have 4 channels. We will select our 4 channel and apply. So in this case, I know since they almost all reading the same, what is this one? Who is this? When I break that one spike. So if you want to, like, you can scale it. Use the scale to, based on, look at these numbers, what is closest, and use those for your scale. Very easy graphing. So now, any questions? We're going to do a lot of activities before I start. I'm going to just put my hand in there because I want to show you guys how the activity sensor data, what you do with it at the end. Any questions? We will start this experiment here in 1 minute and export it and make sense of it, and training is over. I'm getting hungry myself, so. He told me I couldn't have lunch today. I have to fast. No, not you.
If I have mice only 7 or 8 grams, so what's the number?
Mice what?
Only 7 or 8 grams.
7 grams?
Yeah, very small.
Very small mice. That's what here, when we set the experiment, here, no, not with the setup, on the setup, that's where you enter. That's when you weigh your, remember?
I mean, there's a flow.
If you have, that's when you want to look at, okay, very good question. That's when what you are looking at is you see the delta. Delta CO2, delta O2, delta CO2. That's the change. So now I want to see, earlier when I went and I breathed in it. Let's look at the delta. Look at the delta here. This is too high of a delta. This is over 290%. This number, you always want to keep it in between of 0.25 and 0.3, which means about 25% to 30%. But based on your study, you come up with what you want. So you can try, put the mice in there, and if you don't reach the delta you want to reach, the delta is the change between O2, CO2 in, CO2 out. So now, if the mice is too small, the delta will go very small. And so, this is on a scale to 1. On a scale to 1, when I breathed in it, it went to 2 point something, which means way over 290%. When you want to have 25%, 30%. So you want to see this delta number be 0.250, for example. Those are actual decent delta. But it also depends on your study. Some people like high deltas, so they have small cage. Some people like very small delta, they have big cage. It's not only the size of the animal that decides your delta. It's 2 things: size animal, airflow, and the size of the cage. In some case, it depends. Your airflow has a bigger, it can decide more rather than the size of your cage. So if you take a small cage and you put a big rat, your delta will go up because your CO2 concentration get high. So you can either get bigger cage or you can add the flow. But look at these numbers and see what works best. But this works on a range 0.5 liter to 1.2 liter. Right now we set it at 0.9 liter. So let me do some activity stuff and we stop this and training is up. So I am going to do this on a cage and I am going to be human. Or, let me see, usually a ruler works better. No, this might do it also. So, and you guys have a couple of extra of these, is because sometimes, if you look at the flow here, and the flow is nowhere near 900, it's lower, usually, that's what will happen. Small particle will escape, and there's a small hole to allow air, and they can block the hole. Best thing to do, you look at what line it is, you go back there, you remove it, you put one of these, and you go high pressure air. And you put, since that one is labeled, you put that back. This is just to help you while you have an experiment and you don't have high pressure air next to you to blow the, if you see, it's a very small hole. You can see it. Very small. So again, if you see, if it's like 850 milliliter, when it's set at 9, that means there's small tiny particle that blocks it. So at this point, let's go back activity. So we have a little bit of activity here. So I didn't touch cage 1. My activity was at only cage 2 and 3 and 4. At the end of your experiment is done. Any question before I stop it about the whole experiment process? Everything is simple, right? Very easy. To stop the experiment, you click experiment, stop. Do you want to stop? Oh yeah, I want to stop. So there's something with my computer in the program that kicks me out of, but I'm going to bring it back. With you guys, you don't have to do this. I just have to bring the experiment that we just, no, it's not a config. Open experiment data and use it in my desktop, and I think it was here. 627. So this looks like our experiment today. Maybe, maybe not. Nope, this is not it. So let me close this. File open. So, 2019, 627. So, this is our experiment today. So actually, for some reason, there's something with my computer that as soon as I stop the experiment, it kicks me. But normally, it don't kick you out. That's not how it works. Normally, this is what should happen. You go to File. When you click on, once it's done, you should see it exactly the way it is now. You click on File, now Export. Now you can choose to export all CSVs, which I will tell you to do. Export all as CSVs, comma-separated value files. You can choose to export specific parameters. You can choose to export sleep analysis. You can choose to export position analysis, which I'm going to do. So here, we did something earlier. So I'm going to click on this one, and I'm going to play. So this is when I went and I put my hand on the cage. Here, I'm going to draw. This is me, my hand. So I went in the cage. So, and the more data point you get, the better, because this is designed to actually to look at like a whole lot of data at the same time to have. Usually you will get, if it's a mice, at the end you might not barely can see any of the white plane. But when a line goes on top of a line, what happens is it turns black. So you will see its path still. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 is unable to filter because I didn't do nothing with 1. So we only had data for 3, 4, 2, 3, and 4. Not enough, but enough to. So here we can go. This is the distance traveled in inch.
What's the gravity?
Huh?
Start position?
Yeah. This is where it starts. Here is the distance is in inches. So instead of you looking at your total count, you can come to the position analysis and get your distance in inches. And if you want to make it in meter or miles, whatever, it's translated.
What's the area mean?
Yeah, this is when X and a Y touch. So at this point, you saw me on the X and the Y.
Oh.
Yeah, so we can do something, we can choose not to mark it. This is just, as you can see, mark send. We can show wearing. If there was any wearing, there was no wearing. So right now we just show the wearing. That's what those points mean. So you can choose at the end to save the raw or to save the analysis. It's up to you what you want to save. And our book is very good at explaining all the little details. If we go through explaining we need 10 hours training. So at this point, I saved everything in some CSV's file, and we'll just look at the CSV file, and I'll ask you guys again if you have any questions. Most likely everyone will say no because they're tired by now. 3 hours of this boring stuff, just ready to go. So, any question? Can I close the software and open our data analysis piece? Mm-hmm. So, close. And again, it's available on the stick. It's called CLAMS. It's also on the stick. You install it along with our Aximax software. It's called the CLAMS software. Double click on CLAMS. CLAMS open. Go to add experiment. So this experiment was under my document, and it was the 2019. Wait, how could it be? 2019.
Right there. You're on it. Second from the bottom.
Oh, okay. This one. This is the thing with going into different places and just different testers. So at this point, I just migrated our experiment. You can choose to look at it anyway: statistic, time graph, box plot, correlation, histogram. But we're just going to do a little statistic. And here, change it. Each subject. CLAMS is full of a whole lot of different, however you like to see your data is available. Like on this part here, if I just go through everything you can do, this is a one-day training itself. So you download CLAMS, put it in your personal computer, and you know, whenever you have some time, just. This is the part that you teach yourself. But again, a lot of things can be done. I'll just show you guys how to open it. You can do correlation. All the data is saved in a CSV format. So really, there's nothing stopping you to change the data style, however, whatever you want to do.
So does
do a
it?
time graph. Huh?
I know with some of the really old Oxymax systems that with the CSVs it's just every single measurement.
Yeah.
Does it summate it into each hour?
No. With the CSV, it's like we have different types. We have like a CDTA. That's the calorimetry file. We have like a BDTA, that's the bout file. We have like a PDTA, that's the position file. We have ADTA, that's an activity file. That's how it does it.
Okay.
Yeah, it divides it. Let's open one so you can
Okay,
see.
so it won't divide by hours or
Yes.
light or dark phase.
Yes.
We'd have to do that manually.
Yes, you have to do that manually still. Yeah. So that's one of the reasons I showed you what we have here. And if you don't like it again, you can, here, let's go back to the actual data and let's look at it how it's saved. So it's under my document and it's all this here. As you can see, you have some PDTA, you have some ADTA, you have CDTA. It's just a whole bunch of them. Since you did CLAMS, so let's open this guy here and see. So here, as you can see, you have a feed file, a wheel file, another feed file, another wheel file, and it's by channels.
Okay, yeah.
Yes,
So same
yes, census center. So, it's same formats and
Okay. Yeah.
just as long as you know where your file is being saved and point it to the right direction, then after that is, all I can do is just hand you the file.
Yeah.
You should figure out what to do with it then.
Yeah. I used to have a macro. Just love it.
So cracks just for analyzing.
Just analyzing. Question. Everything good? Everything okay?
Maybe it's better to leave your email.
Oh yes, no, that's why I was gonna tell them, since everything okay, no need for email. No, but yes, I'm gonna leave, wait, I might have some, I should have some cards. I have some.
We will have real experiment.